Okay, can you all see my screen? Welcome to the senior panel on the college application experience. My name is Youngpei Troy. I'm the VP of programs for PTSA. Thank you all to my seniors who have um, given their time to come here today, and also all the participants who are still signing in. Welcome. This is a famous quote. Value of college education is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind to think. So over here, I have gotten this list from the US News and World Report. They do a ranking of schools every year. This is the top national colleges. This is the colleges for California, the top ones. College application timeline. And I'm sure the seniors can speak more about this later on, whether this is somewhat how they started or not. I got this from College Board website. They're the ones who actually make the SAT. So as you can see, summer before junior year, maybe you start thinking about what colleges you want to go to, and then you start looking at the websites of the colleges and making note of the deadlines. There's regular deadline as well, which is early decision, and regular deadline. Junior year, you're going to take your college admissions tests and any other tests that are needed for getting into the certain colleges you want to apply to. And you want to send test scores to the college after you've taken that. Summer before senior year, you want to start getting your recommendation letters in line, and then send thank you notes to all the people you've asked for recommendation letters, and start writing your college essays. And each college is different. Some may ask for 2, some may ask for 3 different essays, and I'm sure the seniors on our panel today can speak about that. Fall of senior year, you want to submit a FAFSA if eligible. Fill in any other aid forms that you need. You want to file college financial aid forms. Complete all the college applications, pay fees. There are application fees that are non-refundable that you need to pay. And request the high school transcripts to be sent to the colleges you are applying to. Spring of senior year, you start looking at the acceptance letters, and you pick the college you want to attend. And then once you have that set, you want to apply for any housing meal plans if you need to. And also maybe talk to the financial aid office at the college to talk about whatever financial aid they're going to offer you for attending. Okay, so SAT is a big test that a lot of kids take to go to college. Okay, these are the upcoming SAT dates for 24-25. Okay, and I believe PTSA also gives practice SAT. And we'll talk more. I think next year we'll have more information about when the next year will be. Cost of taking the SAT right now is $60, and there are also other fees that come into play when you cancel or you change the test center. If you have late cancel fee, late registration, those are all added additional costs. And this is a website where I got this information from. SAT components made of reading and writing and math. So it tells you about the time allotted, the number of questions, okay, that you'll be having to take. And then let's go, what is the ACT? Some people take the ACT. Where can I register for that? Okay, ACT stands for American College Test. Okay, and this is their homepage, okay, that you can look up the dates and upcoming ACT dates for 24-25. These are the dates. Okay, and I believe PTSA also offered practice ACT. test. And we'll ask the seniors whether it's important to take both or either. Doesn't make a difference, right? You need to actually look at the college websites of the colleges you want your kid, or your kid has to look at it and decide which colleges and what needs to be done for that college. Cost of ACT, okay, the writing part on ACT actually is optional. So $68 for no writing, $93 with writing. And of course, just like SAT, they have added on fees if you change it or you have to cancel. ACT components, English, math, reading, science, writing is optional. And this is the website I got that. And it's different from the College Board. Okay, this is some possible topics of essay. And this is called the common application essay topics, which are the usual topics that most colleges probably have you pick from. And then there are other possible essay topics because they might ask you to write additional ones. And here are some topics. I got this from this site, Princeton Review. FAFSA, what is the FAFSA? Where do I find it? FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid. This is the website. That's where you find it. And you can apply for the FAFSA. How do I know if my transfer credits will be accepted in another? Well, this is a website I found, Assist. I believe maybe you can have, your kid can ask their counselor about this, and the counselor would probably also know more about which ones, whether the Ohlone credits or so that you get from the dual enrollment, transfer over to the college you're applying to. This is the website. The counselors at Irvington. These are the 5 counselors. Go by your child's last name. And these are the people you would ask when you're asking for transcripts. And seniors on our panel today can give more insight about that. Our college and career specialist is Bindu Chopla. She's the one you want to go see if you want to maybe talk about seeing if she can get an admissions counselor here to speak to students who are interested in going to that college. She's the one that arranges a lot of those meet and greets, whether over Zoom or in person. So she's the person to contact. Our speakers tonight. Okay, and this is no particular order. I just wrote it in. I'm going to introduce them and then they could maybe say something about themselves. Okay, so we have Kritika Mahashari. Okay, she's planning to attend Washington University in St. Louis, thinking of majoring in biology with a English or global studies minor. Kritika, do you want to share something about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kritika. And I guess a fact about me is that I have a younger sister.
Okay, thanks, Kritika. Okay, let's go to the my second one. Sichang Guo, planning to attend Carnegie Mellon University. He's thinking of majoring in electrical and computer engineering. So Sichang, would you like to share something about yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Sichang. I also have a sister. I'm sorry, I don't know what to say here.
That's okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Do some more ice breaking here. Prisha Jane. Okay, planning to attend University of Pennsylvania. Thinking of majoring in chemical and biomolecular engineering. So, Prisha, would you like to share something about yourself?
Hi, like Ms. Choi said, my name is Prisha and I'll be attending UPenn this fall. I think one interesting fact about me is that I'm a really active participant in band. and I've been doing marching band at Irvington over the last 4 years.
Oh, good. Wow. Okay. And Nanika Mohan, she's planning to attend Duke University, thinking of majoring in bioengineering. So, Anika, would you like to?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Anika. I guess an interesting fact about me is that I'm also a pre-med, so that's an area that I'm interested in. And on a similar vein to Prisha, I've participated in choir over the last couple of years. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, seniors. And I'm going to actually try to add all the seniors on the screen right now. So I have compiled some questions for the seniors to answer. If other people have questions, if you can maybe wait a little while before you raise your hand or type in a chat. So to see if my questions answer what you're looking for. Okay. So the first question I have for our panel is, how early did you start the college search process? Did you use any websites, apps, or resources to help you with that? And any of you can unmute and decide to go first, and we'll just make sure everybody gets a chance to speak.
I can start off. So personally, I started compiling my list of colleges that I was interested in January of junior year. And then to actually compile this list, it was honestly through word of mouth and a combination of looking at like the top colleges for my major and my specific area of interest. So one thing that I tried to keep in mind was not to necessarily go by name, but to go more on the basis of what colleges provided the best resources for the area that I want to study, which is bioengineering. And then, yeah, I think I had that list somewhat finalized by June of junior year.
So I think I started a little bit later than Anika. I personally began to look at my college list maybe in May after AP test ended. And I mean, the UCs were like a given for me to apply to being a California resident. But for my other colleges, I followed like kind of a similar thing like Anika, where I looked at the best colleges for my major, which is chemical engineering, and word of mouth from seniors who had graduated the year before, seeing which colleges they applied to. And I don't think my list really finalized itself until I submitted my last application because I was still adding colleges, removing colleges until then. But I'd say more or less I finalized it around August, September.
All right, so I'll go next. Yes, I started my college search around spring of junior year. And like my list like changed a whole lot through the process. Like CMU, like where I'm like planning to going to, like it wasn't like even on my list until like October or November. So yeah, so things can change a lot. So yeah, I worked based off of like the rankings for, I mostly looked at like the rankings for like general engineering. And then I just make sure to like have a good selection of like reaches, targets, safeties, that kind of thing. From like just like different levels of schools, I guess. And yeah,
Yeah, I also didn't know about the college I'm planning to go to until like really later on. I guess I started like considering my college list also in spring of junior year, but I don't think I really seriously started compiling a list and like drafting my applications until the summer before senior year.
Okay, thank you. Second question I have is, how many colleges did you apply to? And how many did you get accepted into? What made you choose the college you decided to go with?
So I personally applied to, I think, 27 or 28 colleges. Out of those, I think I got 20 acceptances and 2 waitlist offers. And picking a college for me was, I think, the most difficult part. I was really torn between Berkeley and the University of Pennsylvania, which is where I'm committing. And that I think I chose UPenn mostly because it was just a better fit for me. I think the opportunities there suited me better for my major. And I think that's what you should look at pretty much when choosing a college, is the college that's going to be the best fit for you.
Okay.
Who would like to go?
Uh,
next? Okay.
okay.
Teacher,
Yeah. I applied to 20 colleges and I was accepted at, I think, 8 of them. So that's not a lot compared to like how many I applied for. So that, I mean, that shows that you like, you know what, never mind, sorry, yeah. Yeah, I got 8 acceptances and I think 4 or 5 wait lists.
Well, do you guys recommend that you apply to more to increase your chances? Or what is your advice for that?
I can jump in on this question. So I applied to a lot of schools. I applied to, I think, about 20 private or out-of-state colleges, and then to the UCs in addition to that. And I was accepted to about 15 of the schools with like 5 wait lists, I think. But I think there's like a trade-off between applying to many schools. Because the more schools that you apply to, the more essays you have to write, and then the less time you get to spend on each individual essay. So if I were to go back in time, I would probably apply to a couple less schools, just because it's a lot of stress to apply to each individual one. But I think, like Zicheng mentioned earlier, it's good to have multiple schools in like the safety, target, and reach categories of your application so that you can really set yourself up the best for those possible opportunities.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So I applied to 22 colleges and I was accepted to 13 and I had 1 wait list. Yeah, when I started, I was definitely not confident about the process at all. So I think that impacted some of the choices I made. But yeah.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being least stressful, 10 being most stressful, how would you rate the overall college application process? Which part of process is the most stressful for you? And how did you get over being so stressed about this whole process?
If I were to rate the stress of the college application process on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it an 8. During first semester, it probably would have been higher. But in hindsight, I'd give it about an 8. And I think what makes it so stressful is just the sheer volume of stuff that needs to be done to apply to colleges in terms of managing application deadlines and actually writing all these essays, which, as mentioned earlier, can range anywhere from like 3 essays for a school to like 7 or 8 essays for that school. And then depending on the number of schools you apply to, you can imagine that that would accumulate to many, many essays. And then later in the process, interviewing and then just writing all these essays, but then also simultaneously balancing school, extracurricular activities, and Quest can just be really overwhelming because there's just so much going on. And another thing to keep in mind that I didn't realize was that it could also be emotionally exhausting to apply to colleges, because writing and editing these essays, it's almost a tireless process to go back to the same draft over and over again. And so that's something to factor in as well. But that stress personally, I realized that my stress was arising from a lack of time management, and the delegation of time to things that weren't necessarily worth it at that point in time. So last semester, I cut out watching TV and stuff like that to particularly focus on applications. And if I wasn't working on applications, like sleeping or taking time to just decompress entirely, so that I wasn't constantly overwhelmed.
Yeah, I would second what Anika said. I think my stress level was also around an 8. I think the most challenging thing for me first semester was that I was doing college applications, and then I was also spending almost 5 hours a week in marching band practice and going to comps every Saturday for the whole day. So that cut down a lot of like the time I could have used for my college applications. And that definitely added to the stress because I was trying to get A's in all my classes, get my college applications done, go to practices. But I think the stress definitely did not decrease second semester because once you finish writing your applications, like Anika said, you have to do interviews. And then picking a college was also like really stressful for me. I struggled with that a lot too. But I think what got me through the stress personally was trying not to do everything on my own. In the beginning, I was trying to edit my own essays, finish everything myself, submit all my materials myself. But once I got like my parents involved in the process, it became a lot easier. Like my parents were really able to help me edit my drafts and give me advice on my essays and help me manage just like the stress from like keeping all of it in your head. You can create spreadsheets and stuff that personally helped me a lot. And I think the best thing to do is try not to do the whole college application process on your own. You can lean on your parents for help with ideas and advice, and you can also lean on your friends. Personally, I would talk to my friends about the college application process while we were applying, and I feel like it kind of created some solidarity in my friend group, and we were all going through the same thing. So it really helped me release a lot of the stress and the tension I had about the process.
So I guess my experience has kind of been a little different. I would say that throughout most of the process was actually not that bad. Like I'd say maybe a 4 or 5. But then it's like towards the end of like the application period, it's I feel like it's mostly the essays because like their point is that they're supposed to like let you tell your own story, right? And then like that means that they make you like look into yourself, I guess. And then I feel like that process was kind of like nerve-wracking for me. So like I like I had to like take some breaks, you know. So like sometimes I was like, I can't do this anymore. So then I like went on a walk, like I would maybe like watch a movie and then I come back after like maybe like even like take a day or two off even just to like get you back into a like state where you can work on your college applications again. Um yeah, but I'm not sure if anyone else has that kind of experience, but that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think taking breaks was also pretty helpful for me. Um, I would rate like my stress overall, like thinking about the stuff I hadn't done yet and still had to do, that would just make me more stressed. But I would feel a lot better once I like got my ideas down and at least like had a start. So I would recommend like just starting like brainstorming um, as soon as you can, and then you can feel like you've had a start in the process.
How do you guys decide which one is your schools that you're gonna do for safety schools as opposed to just regular schools that you really want to get into, as well as did you guys use, or maybe your parents went to search for outside counselors to help advise, or did you go to Irvington's counselor and get a lot of help from them about which college is, good for the major you want to go for?
I personally defined, I think like safety schools are different for everybody. Like, I don't think my safety schools would be like necessarily a safety for somebody else. And I think you can't just like look at acceptance rates and stuff while defining a safety school. Personally, it was really challenging for me to define what a safety school was versus a target school versus a reach school. So to keep a balanced list, I applied to like in-state colleges like the UC system, and I applied to like UC Santa Cruz was personally a safety for me. And I also applied to out-of-state colleges like Purdue, which was another safety for me. But I personally didn't use a college counselor, but I do know some people who did. I feel like the main benefit of a college counselor is they can really advise you on your essays and creating your college list. But for me, my dad helped me with most of my essays. He reviewed them for me, gave me ideas on what like topics that I could write about. And for my college list, I talked to a lot of upperclassmen because I'm in band. I was close with a lot of seniors who graduated the previous year. So I was able to use their advice because I made my college list in May and they graduated a month later. So I kind of got a month to talk to them about my college list and like which colleges would be safeties and targets and reaches for me. And I don't think any list is perfect, which is why it's important to have like a good range of safeties and targets and not just only apply to all 7 IVs. Because I feel like all 7 IVs are probably not a good fit for you because Dartmouth and Harvard are two very, very different colleges.
Yeah, I second that. The part that Prisha just said about how yeah, for example, the 7 Ivies are very different schools, and to figure out what school fits you best is a process in itself, which I guess we could talk about later. But to answer the original question, which was about how to create that list of safeties, targets, and reaches, honestly, it's very arbitrary. Like Prisha said again, something that's a safety for someone may not necessarily be for someone else. I personally created my list on the basis of what a lot of seniors told me before graduating as well. I know that it's probably not the best metric, but I also did a little bit go by acceptance rates in terms of I applied to like I think, yeah, all of the UCs. And so those are my in-state colleges. And then I also applied to Santa Clara University, which was another one of my, I think, safeties. And then in terms of out-of-state schools, the majority of my out-of-state schools were targets and reaches, and those I defined on the basis of being above or below like 10% acceptance rates. And again, it can be really ambiguous because a college might accept many students for some majors, but not necessarily others. And so keeping that in mind and applying to a diversity of schools was something that I think really benefited me because I got into some schools that I didn't think I would, and then I didn't get into some schools that I did think I would, which I guess speaks to how arbitrary the admissions process can be sometimes too, because we can define something as safety, target, or reach on the basis of what we know about ourselves in the school, but at the end of the day, you can kind of hedge your bets a little bit by applying to certain schools. So that you have the best chance of actually getting in and like having somewhere that you actually want to attend at the end of the college application process.
Yeah, I think for me, I ended up mainly going off of acceptance rates. And I would say my decisions were pretty, like, I don't think I had too many unexpected decisions. So yeah, it did end up basically being based on acceptance rates for me, although I did have a few surprises. So yeah, I would definitely like fit is important, and also like making sure you communicate how you would fit into that college can be really effective.
Yeah, so I Well, I didn't have like a counselor or anything. I did get like a lot of help from my mother, who was really supportive throughout the whole process, and she helped me a lot with my essays. And I agree that like which colleges you get into, like it's definitely can feel like very arbitrary at times. In fact, I didn't get into like, I was waitlisted at Davis, at Irvine, and Santa Barbara. So I mean, like honestly, I thought that I would at least get into one of them, but I didn't. But then I still ended up somewhere that's really good. So I guess like that's one of the arguments for why like you should apply to a lot of colleges, but at the same time, I kind of feel bad saying that because like you shouldn't have to like do that to yourself. So I don't know.
And let's go on. What are the differences, if any, of applying to a UC versus private college or Ivy? Did you find many differences, or did they all require, oh, this is the number of essays I want you to write, require the same things?
I really like this question because I didn't realize how different the two application processes would be. And so to speak a little bit to some of the aspects that are different about applying to a private or an Ivy, privates don't require, but sometimes recommend interviews. So UCs, however, do not have interviews. Privates often also have more essays than the UCs do. And so in my experience, for the majority of the private colleges I applied to, the number of essays that I had to write for them ranged anywhere from like just one essay to like 9 or 10 essays for some schools. And these are shorter essays, so it's not like you're writing 500 words, but it was still a lot more work. And then school-specific essays are something that private colleges require that UCs don't, in terms of speaking to why you want to attend that particular institution, speaking about why you want to major in something, and then something that a couple of private colleges now require are test scores for SAT or ACT. In contrast, the UCs don't require test scores. They're completely test blind. They don't have interviews, and they have 4 essays to apply to all of the UCs, which is really different from private colleges. And within those 4 essays, you can talk about basically anything. You don't necessarily need to talk about why you want to study something in particular. You can choose a more personalized prompt to speak to a particular experience that you find meaningful or something like that. So overall, personally, I found the UC application process a lot easier and a lot more intuitive because it was just less work in total to actually write those essays, and I felt that I could focus on particular aspects of myself, whereas in terms of with private colleges, because they were ask so much information of you, you kind of have to highlight different aspects of your, like all different parts of yourself in one application, instead of being able to like tailor your essays to yourself, and you have to directly answer the questions that they're asking of you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think one other noticeable difference is that the UCs don't require rec letters, while most private colleges will ask for rec letters. And those rec letters can range from like 1 rec letter to like 3. So it's definitely like a challenge getting all those rec letters. You have to ask teachers for them, make sure they submit it by the deadline. And I mean, teachers are busy too. They have to do rec letters for so many students, right? And it's a lot of work for them. So I think that's one of the main differences. I'd also like to like kind of emphasize what Nika said. I do agree that the UC app was a lot more personal. I chose prompts that were more about like me as a person rather than the school. Whereas I feel like private colleges really focus on like, why do you want to attend our school? What do you like about our school? So they're very school centric, while I feel like the UC apps are very like you centric. And I definitely appreciated that a lot more. I felt like I really got to talk about myself and like my goals as a person. And the other thing is like 4 essays you can apply to, I think, 8 UCs versus I wrote so many essays for my private colleges. I could say probably like 100 for all the private colleges I applied to. And while the Common App does carry over, most colleges require a lot of supplementals for their kind of school-specific prompts.
So these are all really very good points. I just want to like say that in the end, I mean, like the UCs and like private schools, I mean, they're more similar than they're different. In the end, like you're still trying to like do your essays, you're still trying to like convince them like why they should like let you attend their school, right? So like in the end, like your essays are still about you, no matter like what like they like appear to be asking about on the surface. And then I feel like writing like the UC essays definitely helped me with like writing my private school essays, and then like also writing my like private school essays also helped with writing the UC essays. So they're I do and then I do also think that the UC essays, I'm not sure if like I would call them more personal, but I feel like they were easier to write because they like give you more specific prompts, whereas for like some of the like Common App essays, they have very like open-ended prompts that you can really like take anywhere, and I feel like these are the hardest ones to write.
Yeah, I would also add that private colleges are like more likely to look for like demonstrated interest in their college specifically. So that can be like optional interviews, optional supplements, and also like the whole early decision option. So for Wash U, I ended up doing they have an optional supplement and an optional video. And I think doing both of those, even though it wasn't required, was like part of what helped me get in.
What is the difference between applying to college for early decision versus regular decision?
Yeah, so I think I can speak on that a little bit. UPenn does have an ED option, and they have an RD option. So ED stands for early decision, and RD stands for regular decision. I personally applied to UPenn through the regular decision pathway, and the difference is that in ED, that means you apply to the school usually by November 1st. You get your decision by around December 15th. But if you get in, you are committed to go. You have to go to that school and you have to withdraw all your applications from the other school. By that point, you probably won't hear about any of your other decisions from like all the other schools, and you have to withdraw all your apps without getting to see those decisions. And then the regular decision pathway, you get into the school, but you can choose to decline the offer. You don't have to go there. So there are pros and cons of each option, right? Like the pros of ED is, I think for UPenn, the acceptance rate is almost like 14 or 15% through the ED pathway versus like the 5 or 6% through the RD pathway. So obviously you get that huge boost in acceptance rate, but the con is then you're committed to going. So like I was personally deciding between Berkeley and UPenn. I would not have gotten the option to make that decision if I had applied through the ED pathway. And for some people, if you're 100% sure that is your dream school, your top choice, you can apply ED and then I guess it'll be good for you. But if you're still unsure about where you want to go, I personally would recommend RD as it leaves you with all the options to explore what you want to. And it's also important to note that not all colleges offer ED. For example, I know off the top of my head, like the UCs don't offer it, Stanford doesn't offer it. Actually, any public college doesn't offer it, but like a lot of privates don't as well, like Harvard, Yale, like those colleges don't offer the ED option. Only some colleges do. So you have to research into that.
Yeah, Another thing, those are all really great points. Another thing to keep in mind with applying ED and if you get accepted and you're committed, one con of that is that you also can't compare financial aid offers from other colleges. So I know regular decision, when you actually get all of your applications, you can compare merit-based aid and also just the financial aid that different colleges have granted you. And you don't have the opportunity to do that because you are admitted to that one school and are committed to going. Now there is a caveat to that where you can withdraw your application from the agreement if you genuinely cannot if you genuinely aren't granted enough aid to be able to attend. But that is something to just keep in mind in general. And then yeah, just to make the ED aspect of this clear, you can only apply to one school early decision. And then there are two other pathways that Prisha mentioned briefly. So schools like Princeton, Stanford, Harvard also have an option called REA. And I know that we're throwing around a lot of acronyms and it can get confusing. But REA is the other aspect or the other application process you can do where it's not binding, but some schools offer it such that you can only apply to that one private college early. So for example, if you were to apply Stanford REA, that would mean that you can't apply to any other private colleges early. So yeah, that's another early pathway as well. And it also has its own drawbacks and pros. Although I do think that in general, acceptance rates for ED schools or schools that you can ED to tend to be a little bit higher than schools that you can REA to in the early application round, because if you ED, then you're committed, and schools like that you're committed at the beginning of the application cycle. Oh, and then another thing I wanted to add was to make that decision of if you want to ED to a school or not. I think it's very personal. Again, like Prisha mentioned, if it's like your top choice institution, then it makes a lot of sense to ED there, because what could be better than having a little bit more assurance that you may get in, and then just to know for the rest of senior year by December where you're going. It just takes a lot of stress off your mind. Both at that point and then later on in terms of not having to make the decision of where to go. But personally, I also did not apply anywhere ED simply because I didn't know that I wanted to choose like one school in particular, and I wanted to be able to look at options and pick what suited me best in terms of my acceptances.
I would also add that sometimes the ED acceptance rates can be a bit misleading, because when you apply ED, you're basically competing against like a pool of applicants who all have that like particular top school as their like top choice. So and yeah, that does like tend to like maybe skew the acceptance rate a bit. But if you are sure, like you're basically adding like to your application that that school is your like first choice. So that would be like the benefit you get. So I did end up to applying to a school ED1. That was Vanderbilt. I ended up getting deferred and writing a letter of continued interest. And then I ended up getting in during the RD round. So if a particular school is your top choice, you end up applying ED and you get deferred, at that point you shouldn't lose hope. You can definitely write a letter of continued interest, and that can be pretty effective.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I just personally, I didn't apply anywhere ED because at that point I feel like I still kind of wasn't sure like what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. So I wanted to give myself a bit more freedom to decide.
And I wanted to ask you guys, what exams did you take when applying for colleges? Did you take the SAT, the ACT? And do you think if you didn't take one of them when applying, do you think that affected the college accepting you?
So I took the SAT and the ACT. I didn't mean to take both. I took the SAT and scheduled my ACT for like kind of 2 weeks later. And I was like, oh, if I do good on my SAT, I'm just going to cancel my ACT test and not go. But they do not have a cancellation policy. So keep that in mind if you choose to take the ACT. So I did end up taking both. I was really happy with my score on the SAT and then had to go take my ACT the next day. So that was definitely an experience. But I ended up submitting both of my scores to colleges because I liked both of them, especially the colleges that were test optional. You can't submit your scores to test blind colleges. And for those test optional colleges, I think having SAT and ACT scores definitely is a boost to your application, especially coming from a competitive school like Irvington. There is a little bit of like grade deflation, I would say, where like it's kind of hard to get like straight A's, right? Because there's just so many smart people in this school. And having a good score on the SAT or ACT shows that you are smart in comparison to the other kids in the US because it's a metric used all across the whole country. So I would definitely submit scores if you're happy with them. I think a lot of schools are requiring scores for the next year. And I also took AP exams in my junior year, and I self-reported those on my application, but I personally don't believe they like contribute a lot to your application. I think the course means a lot more. But for me personally, a lot of my scores are also not transferring to UPenn. They don't accept a lot of AP scores, but the UCs do. So if you do end up going to a UC, you can definitely get a lot of credit from your AP test.
Yeah, I agree with what Prisha said. I mean, okay, I only took the SAT and then I was really happy with my score, so I went ahead and submitted it to like all my colleges. I mean, a good score can only help you, right? It shows that, especially when a lot of the times when grades might not be able to like differentiate yourself from other students, so like a good test scores can definitely help you like prove that you have what it takes to succeed at college.
Kritika, do you have anything? Anika, anything to add?
Yeah, sorry. I also only took the SAT. And the way I chose was I took an SAT practice test and an ACT practice test. I did horribly on the ACT practice test, and I did a little bit better on the SAT one. So I ended up going with that. And I actually took the SAT twice, 3 times, something like that. But there is no shame in retaking it. I think that's something that I didn't know early on. When I was preparing for the exam, I thought that the first score you get is your end all be all. It's very much not. And so, yeah, I also agree that it can't hurt to submit scores. I submitted scores to all of my schools just because, like Prisha and Sicheng mentioned, it's a standardized method of reporting, I guess, academic achievement. And so where GPA may not necessarily be representative, your SAT score or ACT score likely is. And then in terms of APs, I took 8 APs throughout my career at Irvington. So I took 1 exam sophomore year, 3 junior year, and then I'm about to take 4 senior year. And yeah, I don't think that these courses and my scores in the exams themselves contributed as much to my acceptances as my GPA, or not GPA, sorry, my scores in the courses themselves did. And Duke doesn't offer credit for some of my APs, and for the majority of them that I do get credit for, I don't get to skip that class. I just get to enroll in a higher version of it. So for chemistry, for example, I don't get to just skip first year chem. I just take a more advanced level of that course.
Yeah, I also took the SAT once and I was pretty happy with my score. Yeah, for the SAT, I would definitely recommend the free resources on like Khan Academy. So that's like partially made by the College Board. So I think that does give you like, if you do a practice test on there, it should give you an accurate prediction of what you can expect, and doing the practice problems could help you improve. I took 6 AP exams last year, and I'm going to be taking 5 this year. WashU doesn't accept a lot of credits, so I don't think I'll be able to use a lot of them. But I do think like all of those scores like would have only helped me in my application.
Yeah, I'd also like to add one more thing I forgot to mention. I think the ACT is a better exam typically if you're stronger in math, and the SAT exam is better if you're stronger in English. I think the ACT requires you to know pre-calc before you take it. So, I mean, it's definitely not like, I think, attainable for a lot of people at Irvington because most of us do pre-calc in our junior year. I did double Excel, so I'd finished pre-calc by the time I took the exam. So I think for most people, I would recommend the SAT as the math portion on the ACT can be very difficult if you haven't done trig and pre-calc yet.
And all the talk about the AP credits, is that listed on the college websites, whether they will accept which AP credits for the classes you took, or is there a separate website you guys had to go look this up?
As far as I've seen, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry, thank you. So I think there's actually, you can look that up on like College Board's own website, right? And let me see. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that if you just go to the AP website, they have a page where you can just type in your college, you can search it up, and then you can see like whether they give credit for that test. Just make sure that sometimes you might see like a test listed up there for a particular college, but then it might not actually give you like anything useful. Like maybe it's just like elective credits that you don't really need. So, but you should but it also like gives you a link to like the college's own website that you can see like more detailed information on, and that can give you like everything you need to know like whether your test is accepted and like what kind of credit it's going to give you.
Yeah, I think you summarized it pretty well. Just one other thing to add is that for me, I didn't know that College Board has it. Actually, I only researched transferring after choosing where to attend. But yeah, for credit transfer, if you look at the actual school's website and you just search up like school name AP credit policy. So for me, it was Duke AP credit policy, and it comes up. It's a table which shows all the AP exams they accept. And then the nice thing about each individual school's website is that they show what course that you can surpass and switch into, which is really nice because I think College Board has more broad information about how they just accept that particular AP exam, but the school's specific website will show you like what pathway you can take after submitting that score to that particular university.
Let's move on to talking about dual enrollment courses, because I know Irvington has some dual enrollment courses that offer the Ohlone credit. So was that helpful if you took it? And was that being accepted at the college that you went to? Or do you want to go to apply to the dual enrollment courses I'm talking about?
So I got dual enrollment credit for band for 3 years before I maxed out. And I think I got it for Spanish 3 as well in my junior year. Unfortunately, none of my dual enrollment credit is transferring. It's not like allowed in UPenn's policy. But also I think I only got like 8 credits of college credit total. I think Spanish was the biggest one, and as I will not be taking Spanish in college, it doesn't really make a huge difference to me personally. Most private colleges do not accept community college transfers. If you are taking a lot of community college or dual enrollment courses, it's probably more wise to choose a UC because they accept all community college credit that's A through G.
Yeah, the case is the same for me. Duke doesn't accept the majority of, or any actually, of my dual enrollment credits. So I did Intro to Computer Science with Ms. Barbawi in freshman year, and that was dual enrollment at Ohlone. And so I think the course itself at Ohlone was called CNET, and I got credit for that. And then I also did dual enrollment for Spanish 3 in junior year. But yeah, I also will not be getting credit for those courses. I think part of it is also because those aren't like required areas that I would need to transfer credit into. But if my dual enrollment were in areas more particular to my major or for a specific requirement, I think some colleges do accept credit out of state also. But I think that number is definitely lower than it would be if you were to transfer to UC, or if you were to go to UC, for example.
Okay. Yeah. I'm in a similar situation. I got community college credit for Introduction to Design with Mr. Bowie, as well as Chinese. And these kinds of credits aren't like particularly useful for like getting anything out of the way in college. It might be different for like maybe like if you're going into STEM, like maybe you could take like linear algebra, multivariable calculus at a community college. But that again is depending on like which university you get into and whether they accept credit for that. But like even if they don't, I feel like it can still be a very good enriching experience. And then having that on your transcript can definitely like I feel like it can definitely help like demonstrate your like passion to like learn like deeper into your field.
Let's talk about extracurriculars. Whether that what extracurriculars you got. I know that Prisha said she was in band. Do you think it really helps you when you apply for colleges that you list that, oh, I'm involved in this type of extracurricular activity, like whether it be a band, whether it be a club, whether it be sports? Do you think that really helps you get an edge into getting into college?
I can start off with this one. Yeah, I think that extracurriculars are absolutely super helpful in applying to colleges, especially because it's not just like a list of extracurriculars that you write down. There's that aspect where you have an activities list on the Common App and you list 10 extracurriculars, up to 10 extracurriculars that you were involved in. But there are also essays in which you can reference a variety of life experiences, and some of those might come from extracurricular involvements. So if you're meaningfully involved in different activities, it gives you a bigger repertoire of experiences to choose from when writing those essays, which I think can be very insightful. So personally, I was involved in community service and mentorship throughout high school. And so that was a big part of my application in terms of just volunteering in the community. I also engaged in activities related to medicine because up until like last year, I was interested in pursuing just biology on a pre-med route, and a summer experience I had last summer actually caused me to switch majors to biomedical engineering, which goes to show how amazing like different opportunities and extracurricular engagements can be, because I guess the way you learn within a classroom is very different from that which you do when you're actually involved in experiential learning, and that came for me in the form of a summer program. So I would definitely recommend that. And then as I mentioned earlier, the other largest aspect of things that I was involved in was choir and just singing and involvement in the arts. So yeah, I've been singing Hindustani classical, which is Indian classical music, since I was about 5 and continue to do so. And then I also sing in choir at school. And I also enjoy singing like Western classical music. And so to a lot of my colleges, I actually submitted a vocal portfolio and talked about my experience with music and singing. That was one of the biggest things that I talked about. in some of my essays. And so I think that that experience, while not something that's full of many like accolades or whatever, is something that contributed a lot to me as a person. And so that's something that I focused a lot on as well. And then, oh, just a really quick answer question in the chat: what kind of volunteering and service did I do? I taught a lot of students. And so, yeah, I worked at the nonprofit side of things, mentoring students within STEM, and also just, yeah, other areas that they needed help with, both academically and in areas in terms of wanting to improve their enrichment. Yeah.
I think what I want to emphasize from Anika's answer was that it has to be a meaningful experience. I know a lot of people just join activities for like the sake of joining them, but I think the real benefit comes through in your essays. I think there's not a single college I applied to where I didn't talk about band like at least once, even if I just briefly mentioned a sentence, because it was such like a crucial part in shaping me as a person, and it taught me so many things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. And like Anika was saying, I was also very involved in community service throughout high school. I was also very involved in Irvington. I was the president of two clubs and the vice president of another. And those types of experiences are things you don't get in a classroom, like Anika was saying, because being like the president of a club is so much more responsibility than you're used to in your classes, because now you're telling people what to do. You're the one responsible for making sure things actually happen, things get done. So some of the clubs I did was I did Science Olympiad, so I was president of Science Olympiad. I was president of Chess Club and vice president of Math Club. And Science Olympiad also made an appearance in a lot of my essays and in my awards list as well, because it was kind of a science-based competition where I got to like explore a lot of things. So that was really great for me as well, because I got to kind of explore all the things I was interested in, because I knew I was interested in science, but not chemistry specifically until I got to do like a chemistry-based event. And I think the most important thing to do when you're like looking at which activities to join is to join the ones you're truly passionate about, the ones you can see yourself doing for like not even just high school, but like even after high school. Like I personally see myself joining like band and stuff at UPenn because I just enjoy the activity so much. So it's about things that you're truly passionate about. And if only if you're passionate about it can you really make a difference, and it'll shine through in your essay, the passion you have for the activity. And just to answer a question in the chat, I started Science Olympiad in my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah, I would also like emphasize your activities don't necessarily have to be related to your major. So for me, I did varsity track and cross country. I have a part-time job. I'm an officer for one club. And I also had a few summer programs. So, yeah, it's not like I wouldn't say I have anything like um extremely special. I also did tutoring as well, but I was able to like discuss those activities and how they were like meaningful in my essays. So I think like that really helped, even though I didn't start like doing activities specifically related to my major until I think the summer before my junior year.
Sichin, did you want to
Okay, yeah.
anything?
So, I mean, I feel like in terms of activities, I didn't like really have like anything like very like strong in particular. I mean, same as Kritika, I didn't like really like start doing like really major related activities until like halfway into my like high school career. And then but the most important thing is that you like need to like weave your activities like into a story, like through your essays. And then that can like that's really the most important thing, because like it's not okay, it's mostly okay, I mean it's not necessarily about like what awards you get, like how like impressive your things are, but like how they can demonstrate that you have the passion, or at least you can make the colleges think that you have the passion. And that's what the most important part is for your activities.
Let me ask all of you, did you, in deciding the college you want to go with, did you make campus visits? And what quality help you decide, oh, this is the school that I want to commit to, I want to go to?
So I visited both UPenn and Berkeley the day after each other. I went to Penn on Friday and then I went to Berkeley on Saturday. So I got to see them like pretty close to each other, which helped keep it like fresh in my mind. I think it did help me make my decision a little bit. I'd been on the Berkeley campus a lot, like anyways, because of like science Olympiad and math competitions and stuff. But I'd never like given it like a tour, you know, like given it a fair chance kind of in that way, because I just been there so much. So like being able to go on a tour really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of the things there. And then being able to tour inside the buildings themselves, like at UPenn and Berkeley, I got to like see the chemistry laboratories and stuff and see all the facilities they have. That also really helped me solidify my decision. Personally, I thought that UPenn's facilities were like a lot better, like cleaner, newer, more modern. I guess they were like more recently renovated. But other than that too, like getting a feel of the campus and seeing how you fit in is really important. Penn is a lot smaller of a campus than Berkeley. I think it's like 1/4 the amount of undergraduates and like probably like around the same size actually, I think. And it has a very like East Coast kind of feel. It's like the red brick buildings and like the Gothic architecture. And I really saw myself like feeling more at home in Penn. Like I saw myself fitting in there better. And that kind of helped me make my decision.
My experience was a little bit different. I actually toured colleges before applying. So I toured last year, like in the spring of junior year. And so at that time I saw Duke. I saw a lot of schools. I saw like Boston University, Duke, Johns Hopkins, and a couple others. But what really solidified the decision for me for Duke was just the experience of actually being at these schools. So the first thing that I didn't really consider was how the environment of a college would impact me in terms of whether it was urban, suburban, or just like completely in the woods. Like Duke is very much not urban, like it's close to city, but it's not in a city. It's surrounded by a lot of trees. And I didn't realize how much I would really appreciate that, because when I toured Boston University, for example, it was an amazing school. But what I didn't realize was it's in the heart of Boston. And so it doesn't really have a closed campus, which means that you don't really have the experience of walking on like a college campus. It's more like buildings that are distributed throughout this like particular area. And so personally, I really liked the feeling of being in a closed campus environment. It felt a lot safer and just more comfortable. So that was one thing that I took into account. And then secondly, this is a little bit nerve-wracking, but I would highly, highly recommend going up to students just at these universities and asking them about their experiences, saying, hey, I'm a prospective student here at insert university. And I would love to learn about like the good aspects and what you think would need to be improved at the school. And so that gives you an insider's perspective on actually attending that school, or if you have friends that go there, that's even better. Because I think you can only learn so much from a website or an info session, and it's another thing to talk to someone who's actually going through the experience that you potentially will a year from that point in time. And then another thing that I think a lot of students don't do, but I would really highly recommend, is auditing classes at these universities. And so what I did when I was touring is I cold emailed like 4 to 5 professors at each of these universities and said, hey, I'm a prospective student. Would it be possible for me to sit in on your class on insert subject area on this day and time? And the majority of the time, the professors responded within a day, and they were more than happy to just allow me to come sit in. And so I think that's a really unique opportunity that not only gives you something really cool to talk about in your essays, but it also gives you the opportunity to explore what the experience of being a student at that school would be like in terms of not only seeing how the professor teaches and how they interact with their students, how engaged they are, how much they enjoy what they're teaching, and how good they are at teaching it, but it also gives you the opportunity to see how engaged students are in their education, and wanting to raise their hands during class and actually engage in the classroom. And so what really defined Duke for me was this collaborative community that I saw when I toured campus. I actually cold emailed a professor who allowed me to come into her lab and see students actually completing the lab, and the students came to the door. I wasn't allowed to actually go into the lab room because I wasn't technically a student at that point. But those students came to the door and they greeted me. They answered any questions that I had about the university. They really sold the university to me in terms of like, this is an amazing place to be. You might be hesitant moving so far away from home, but it's an amazing environment and collaborative community. And that's, I think, hard to come by, especially when you're considering a lot of universities and you don't really have the opportunity to experience the community at them, and it's just something that you hear about. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that sold Duke for me above their like academic excellence and whatever that you can find out on a website.
Kritika and Sichan, do you have anything to add or not really?
I mean, I don't really have much to add
Okay,
here.
that's okay. You know, there was a question that came up in the chat about volunteer hours. I know to graduate from Irvington is required 40 hours, right? But a lot of people try to go for more. Like, I think it's if you reach 100 or more, you get the Presidential Service Award. Do you think that makes a big deal or a big difference when you apply to college to say, oh, I got that?
I don't think like whether you have the award or not makes a huge difference. I think it's more about like what you do with these hours, right? If you can like spend 100 hours like volunteering in something that you really like, and you can like, and that's like maybe it's related to your major or it's just something that you really like to do and you're passionate about and you can talk about it, then I mean that's great. But then you can also use these hours to like do other things like school clubs or maybe like I don't know, like there are all kinds of extracurriculars you can do. And I don't think that like just getting hours in for like some kind of award is really what you should be like aiming towards.
Yeah, I personally got the presidential award a few times. Like I applied for it and like, I mean, you're guaranteed to get it if you've done the amount of hours. And I think I did list it on my college applications, but I guess, I mean, I wouldn't recommend just trying to get the hours just for the award because the main impact of my community service was again in my essays where I got to talk about the impact I've made on others and how it's shaped me as a person. And I think that kind of like is basically the root of like all things college app is not to do something just for the award or just for the resume or just for the activity list. It's about doing things you're really passionate about that matter to you.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And to elaborate on that a little more, like I think I got the gold award, but didn't mention it in my application anywhere. And that's because in the section that I would have mentioned it, I talked about like my the personal like journey I had with particular students in terms of like mentorship. And I talked about how not only I saw them grow, but I saw myself grow. And so I think that speaks to this idea of that's something that you'd only be able to talk about if you've actually been through the experience. And been personally invested in it, whereas an award may be something that anybody can list. And so, yeah, really being able to personalize your application fully depends on, again, like Prisha said, the level investment that you have in that particular activity or area.
I also wanted to go back to the mention of recommendation letters. You said you get recommendation letters from your teachers. Can you get it from other places, from other people? And how many typically do you think are required at the UCs or the privates?
So as mentioned previously, the UCs don't take any kind of recommendation letters. And I'm pretty sure that the CSU don't look at recommendation letters either. Personally, I just had two of my teachers get. I just like got recommendations from two of my teachers for the private schools. I think that in general, it's a good idea to like get one from a STEM teacher and another one from a like humanities teacher. Just to show that like you're well-rounded, and also I think that some colleges they do like specifically want to see you have like one from like each kind of teacher. And I didn't get like any like outside of recommendation letters beyond that.
Yeah, I think UCs and CSUs don't require rec letters, but I also agree that it's always advisable to get like one STEM and one humanities. I personally got a math recommendation letter and one from an English teacher.
Yeah, some private colleges, they do have that optional like additional recommendation, but you if you want to submit that, you should make sure the recommender knows you well and will have something new to say about you, like other than your teachers. Because like just having as many recommendation letters as you can doesn't always help if they're all saying the same thing, or maybe like one contradicts the other somehow. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind.
I think that's definitely true. Yeah. I personally got a letter of recommendation from my history teacher, an English teacher, and a math teacher. And so that's one more recommendation than what a lot of schools require. But there are some schools that, like previously mentioned, accept more than 2 recommendation letters. And so, yeah, the number of recommendation letters that a school requires is generally between 1 and 2, but there are some where you can submit up to like 5. And so obviously you don't have to submit 5. It's not advisable to unless all 5 of them you believe are very significant and highlight different aspects of you. And then I think the question itself was mentioning whether you can get a recommendation from somebody who's not necessarily a teacher. And yes, you absolutely can. In some ways, it might actually be beneficial to get a recommendation from a community member, a coach. I know for one school, I got a recommendation from my choir director because that was one of the schools that I submitted a vocal portfolio to. So yeah, I think choosing your recommendations based on who is writing them and then what they can say about you and what aspect of you that they can highlight is really it's a really good tip, because each individual that you request to write a letter for you knows a different aspect of you, and they can speak to different aspects of your abilities as well. So in some ways, it might even be advisable to have an outside rec in that sense too.
I think one question in the chat was, what did you do the spring, summer of your junior year? So I don't know if you guys can remember back, what did it look like? I mean, I know a lot of you were preparing for this whole college application process, but was there any other things you did that ended up being useful in applying for college?
I had one of my most meaningful experiences this past summer. So the summer of following junior year before senior year. So first of all, throughout the summer, I was just writing like college essays, which I think it's good to start on those sooner rather than later, especially because there's one main essay called the Common App, which is an essay that is submitted to all of your private colleges if you apply through the Common Application. And so that's like a 650-word essay, I think, about basically any topic of your choice. They have like 7 or 8 prompts that you can choose from. And so that's one of your most essential essays. So getting a start on that was something that I worked on. But in addition to that, I also had an internship. It was called SIMMER, the Stanford Institutes of Medicine Summer Research Program. And that's what I mentioned earlier, which caused me to switch my major from biology to biomedical engineering. It was a really cool experience where I had the opportunity to work with other students to create a medical device to solve any medical need. And my team and I worked on it throughout the summer and a little bit after. And it was just a really incredible experience to go beyond what any textbooks could have taught all of us, and to really explore the intersection of not just medicine and technology, but also what goes in beyond that when creating a product, in terms of pitching the product, finding experts to interview, actually working with doctors and physicians at Stanford. So yeah, that was all a really incredible experience. And so I would highly recommend that in the summer following sophomore or junior year, to do an opportunity that allows you experiential learning in whatever way that may be. For me, it was medicine related, but obviously that would be dependent on what you're interested in studying. But I think it's just a really cool experience to be able to talk about in your application, your interviews, and just to help you explore what you're really interested in, and if it's really an area that you'd like to pursue in the future.
So, I mean, in like my junior year, spring and summer, I kept like involvement in like my extracurriculars. I like did like a bunch of things with like some like STEM related clubs at school. And then during the summer, I went to like a summer program called Cosmos. I think that, I mean, like, I don't know, like, I think that a lot of people have heard of it. It's like a summer program, like for like STEM, that's hosted by the UCs. So, I mean, it was an interesting experience, and like I definitely like leveraged it by talking about it in my essays. But I mean, like, I don't think that Cosmos was something that was like, I don't know, like life-changing or anything. I certainly wouldn't describe it that way. I mean, it's just a summer program where like you go and take like you go to some lectures that are like taught by like college professors, and then you probably get to do some like hands-on activities. But I mean, like I don't think that this depends on like which specific program you get into, but like overall, I don't think that it's something that like you should like beat yourself up over, like if you're not admitted or anything.
I think we're running, we're running very over time, but I want, I guess, to ask our panelists if there's any last type of advice you have for the underclassmen who are on this meeting call with us, what to keep in mind when they start embarking on this college application process.
I feel like I've already said this a lot of times, but I don't think the college application process is like the be all end all. It's like very random. I feel like a lot of it has to do with, just like luck. A lot of things I feel like just worked out because maybe me and my interviewer had the same interest, or the person reading your essay was like in a good mood that day. Like you cannot control the process. So I think the best thing to do is just try to enjoy it. Like I was saying earlier, don't do things just because they're a resume booster or good for the college application process. Do things you're genuinely interested and enjoy. And, even if they don't result in you getting into the college of your dreams, you'll be happy with what you did in high school. You'd have enjoyed your high school experience, and it's made you a better person out of it. And I think the main thing, like, is that it doesn't really matter where you go, it's what you make of the experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Prisha said. And then I also want to keep an open mind about like where you end up, right? And I don't mean to like, and what I mean is that people like might say that they like the like vibes of a specific college, sure, I don't know. But then like I think that in the end, it isn't like that hard to like adapt to places. And I feel like, I mean, like I really wasn't expecting to like end up at CMU when I was like applying, right? But then like that turned out to be like but like after the decisions shortened, that was where I like felt like I that like matched with me the most. So then I decided to do that. So just keep an open mind and yeah.
Pratika, do you have anything to add or no?
I would say, it's important, like, to apply to a variety of schools. Like, don't overestimate your chances, but then you also shouldn't underestimate yourself and just like not apply because you don't think you're going to get in. Um, yeah, so I definitely like, towards the beginning, I did not think I was going to like get into some of the schools with just based on their acceptance rates. But I ended up applying anyway, and it turned out like pretty well for me. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I think this might be a little bit repetitive, but oops. Um, yeah, I guess I just have two main pieces of advice. The first is that, like Prisha mentioned, you really don't know what colleges are looking for. Like maybe an admissions reader has a good day and they like your essay and they resonate with what you say, and maybe they don't. But based on that, like I think Kritika also mentioned this, don't just rule out schools because you think that they might not want you or you might not fit well with what they're looking for, because you really don't know what it is that they're looking for. And so it's best to shoot your shot and not to live in the regret of having not applied for that opportunity. And then the second thing I wanted to highlight was that it'll be okay. It's easy to say in hindsight, but I know that when like college decisions started rolling out, and rejections and wait lists and things like that started happening and deferrals, that was really it can be like very emotionally exhausting and saddening to see not yourself not getting into specific institutions, especially ones that you really wanted to go to. And then on the basis of not getting into one school, it's very easy to think, oh, I probably won't get into the others. But to just keep in mind that even if one school is your top choice or something of that nature, there is a right school for you, and that's where you'll inevitably end up. And you know, if you choose a school and the school chooses you, chances are that you guys fit well together, not just in terms of vibes, but also in terms of what you bring to the table and what the school has to offer you in terms of resources. So yeah, rejection will happen, but it's inevitable. It's an inevitable part of applying to so many incredible institutions and putting yourself out there. So it can be emotionally vulnerable, but it's also worth it in the end, and it ends up working out.
I just wanted to add like maybe some practical advice, I don't know. So do try to find like a school that has like EA admissions and that like you think you have a pretty good shot at getting into. Because if you get like an acceptance early on in like the process, it can really like help you. Because like one of my first decisions was an acceptance, and then like that made like all the rejections afterwards feel like a whole lot less bad, because like you know that you have somewhere to go, and then that's something that can be really helpful.
Very good advice you guys shared. So if you have we have to wrap up this session. If you have other pressing questions that were not answered, here's my email. You can email it to me and I could possibly forward it to our panelists to see if they can answer that. This is our website, PTSA website. If you look at this menu bar, College Career Series, I believe that's where I'm going to probably be posting tonight's video recording and my PPT. So if you missed it because some of you joined late, You can go back, but just give me a few days to get that up. Okay. I want to say thank you first to my panelists. Okay, Anika, Prisha, Kritika, Sichen, for taking the time and also sharing your experience, your advice on everything. Good luck to you guys and the remainder of your senior year, and also you're going to college, right? Thanks again. Thank you all participants for joining us. And that concludes our senior panel. Good night. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, do you mind sharing the email ID again, please?
I'm sorry.
The email ID?
My email screen again.
Yes, please.
Okay, let me see. Like, go back to it. Need to. You know what? I'll just type in the chat because it seems to be a problematic thing to get in my PPT when I'm on this meeting.
Thank you so much.
I will
Thank
just-
you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Okay, so there, I just put my email in the chat, so you can email me, and you can check the PTSA website in a few days for the video recording, as well as my PowerPoint that had some information earlier. Okay, thanks again, panelists, okay, for joining. Have a good evening, have a good night.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you, panelists. Great
Thank you.
job.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.